This is Brian Icenhower, and I am here with Sean Moore out of Columbia, Missouri, where Sean is a RE/MAX agent. And Sean, thank you for being with us today. It's great to have you.
Thanks for having me, man.
You bet, man. Sean, actually, I'm going to give a little background on you. Sean actually spent 10 years in the police force and then another 9 years as in the reserve force. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Before getting into real estate. And man, has he gotten into real estate. Last year, he did 169 transactions, about 40 million in total sales volume, 1.1 million in gross commission income. And when you say those type of gaudy numbers out there, a lot of people will think that's because he had this big, monstrous real estate team. And he did have a real estate team, but in this situation, Sean did that with just 2 administrative staff members and a couple buyer's agents to put up 169 transactions. Broken down, you took over 100 listings yourself last year, right?
Yes, sir.
And that's in Columbia, Missouri. That's albeit the capital. It is not the largest city by any means in Missouri, is it?
No, I think we're 5th largest in the state.
Right. Yeah, you're right in the middle of Missouri, halfway between Kansas City and St. Louis, right?
Exactly. 2 hours to the east, 2 hours to the west.
So I would call that rural, right?
Yep. People call us the flyover area.
You're the flyover. Okay. Well, I bet you are.
We have a cafe here called the Flyover,
and you are getting ready, and you are probably getting ready to hunt deer. I'm assuming.
I'm leaving tomorrow morning.
There we go. Okay, perfect. So we've set the stage. So he's not doing this in an area where there's endless sales going on. He is taking big market share there. All your sales agents are doing over 30 units each, both of them, correct?
Yep.
Over 30 units each on that. So really high production from a tight, small group, relatively speaking. And from knowing you, Sean, and from our past discussions, a lot of that is because of how selective you are in the hiring process and how you hire really slow.
Absolutely.
And so that's why I really wanted you to share that with the crowd today. Tell us a little bit about how you hire slow and how you are selective in making a hire, and a little bit about your process for doing so when you bring someone onto the team.
Well, first off, I don't ever have to advertise. With my success in my market, I've been selling real estate now for 13 years. People are always knocking on my door, and I'm always willing to talk to people. I mean, I probably interview or sit down with a prospect, a team member once a week, if not a couple times a month. And so I start off with, of course, getting their resume, and eventually we will meet one-on-one, usually not in my office. I like to go meet at a coffee shop or whatever. And if I like what I see there, I will schedule an in-office meeting so that the team can meet them and we can get a bigger perspective. And that's really how it goes. But what I really want to put in that I've learned is the background of that process. But besides all the assessment and the questions that I have for them, the interaction and the communication with that potential team member from start to finish, from the day they reach out to me or I reach out to them, all the way through, that will tell you a lot about how that team member is going to interact in the future. I believe in the philosophy of hire slow and fire fast. And for that manner, I'm interviewing right now for an office manager, secretarial, receptionist position, somebody that's just there to keep the lights on when everyone's gone and out doing the day-to-day business. And a gal I was interviewing, just her poor communication, her poor follow-up, just caused me to, after the second interview, just tell her I didn't think she was a good fit. And another thing, a team member, my director of operations, Kenny Hubble, keyed in the interview phase. All her questions and all her concerns were about her. She had no interest, no questions, no concerns of the team. So, you're going to spend more time with these people potentially than your own family in any given work cycle. So if there's one thing I want everyone to take away from this is really pick people that you enjoy and want to spend a lot of time with.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's crucial. A lot of people forget that, because you do want different types of people in different seats on the bus, but at the same time, you better make sure you like being on the bus with them. Because you're going to spend a lot of time with these people,
Yeah.
and your success is dependent upon them to some degree.
Right. And I'm not saying hire or partner up with a bunch of beer drinking buddies that, you all love to have a good time with, because then no work's going to get done. I'm a high DI. For those of you that are in the business, please learn the DISC. Please learn and understand the DISC. In fact, there's some great software out there today. The one that I use is called Crystal. And Crystal is an add-in to my Chrome browser, to my Google Contacts, to my Google Calendar. And I now pay for the full package. It's less than $50 a month. But Crystal analyzes all my upcoming meetings. And if I attach contacts and emails, she goes in and searches for any interaction I've had with that upcoming person. And before I walk in the room, Crystal has already told me the personality of the person I'm getting ready to spend the next half hour, 2 hours with. Beautiful technology.
Yeah, just based upon your communications with that person, putting them through the hiring process. So it's a great way to really validate their DISC assessment, because there's people that are pretty familiar with the DISC behavioral assessment, and then they might start. There is a way to manipulate those. If you know what you're doing, you can make yourself turn out a few different ways if they know what they're doing. So Crystal actually starts analyzing that in between. And I love the fact that you love Crystal so much. Like, I'm curious, are there like marital problems because you're always talking about Crystal at home?
Well, Crystal, I'm relatively new to Crystal. She's new to the relationship.
This gets
So
better. Yeah, this gets better. We're not sure if it's going to last, but it's looking good.
That's right.
So, no, so that's great though. That's a great tip. What I heard from you there, Sean, is how you talked about how the process does so much of the work for you. It's people will get so caught up on the words that someone uses in an initial interview or a phone interview, or the behavioral profile that their behavioral assessment shows up as. But you can learn so much about them just by interacting with them. Do they show up on time? Do they have to constantly reschedule? Are they early? Do they ask the right questions? You know what I mean? Or are they just asking about, like, when, if you've got someone who says on the first meeting, well, what would my pay be? How much paid vacation will I have? What times am I going to get off? If they're just asking everything's me, don't think that that's going to get any better once they get on the job.
That's right. This is the first or second date.
Right.
I mean,
yeah.
You're seeing the relationship at its peak. Yeah. It doesn't get any better than this.
That's right. Same with their clothing, everything. It's going to show up best initially.
That's right. You're on a first and second date.
Right. So if they're not willing to compromise and they're already really self-centered with regards to their questions, they're not curious about what you want, what you need, where that team's going to go, or where we are going, as opposed to what I need. You can start to bring on a lot of victims to your team. And I will tell you, there is nothing more costly than doing something like that from time and money. So I think that's great. I think how I love how you're having several interviews. You also have an interview when you bring the other members of the team on too, don't you?
Oh, and I encourage them to have questions, and they get to see the Q&A that I had with them on the first meeting. So that helps my team members come up with their own questions. And I don't need to see or know what they're going to ask. I want to fly. I want this conversation to stay fluid. And again, like you just hit the nail on the head, it's not about the questions and the answers. It's about, how does the process go? Yeah. How does this relationship evolve? Is it getting worse? Is it getting better? And man, there's, it's kind of the unspoken word, look at the body language. That's my background. That's my gift. Read people like a pamphlet. Don't read them like a book.
Right. That's right. And that will start to show up the more times you meet with them and the more times you interact with them. And I'll tell you, there's something about a thorough process that makes them want the job more.
Yes.
By the end of that, they really like, wow, am I going to get this or not? Even though at the first they might have been deciding whether they want it. By the end of that, they've got time vested in it. They see how careful you are. So that just makes the position that much more coveted. So they
Yep.
really start to want it.
Yeah, and I've seen that. I've gotten 3-4 weeks into interviews and back and forth emails, and you finally get from a quality person. Well, I'm loving every bit of this. When can I start?
Right. Right. Yeah, they like that. So I think that's the key. And I tell you, when with clients that I've worked with in the past, oftentimes when they come to me, we find that that's the biggest problem is they're just grabbing people. They declare everyone talent and they don't want to miss the opportunity. So I'm hiring them. I meet with them once and all of a sudden we put them in this candidate in the most favorable light humanly possible, without looking at anything with a critical eye. And next thing you know, we're bringing them onto the team, and the expectation is not there that you have standards, that you are thorough. They are not nearly as impressed with you when they come into the role because, you basically kissed on the first date.
Yeah.
You didn't thoroughly assess whether they were a good fit for the team, which also shows you don't care.
Yeah. And I see that in my marketplace all the time. Anytime a new brokerage shop opens up in any marketplace, a certain type of agent ends up filling all those empty chairs.
Yes. Yeah. 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 And that can end up being a very, very costly hire down the road. So,
yeah.
Well, Sean, I'll tell you, thank you so much for this. Amazing insight, amazing success for you. It'll be fun to watch you going forward into this following year. And I hope you kill a lot of deer here coming up.
Sounds good. Well, I appreciate the opportunity, and I've got some big goals, coming up for the next couple of years, and I'm already at the top, so there's nobody above me in my marketplace to go after. So I'm going to just set the bar that much higher.
There you go. Raise the tent. I'm with you,
Yep.
man. I'm with you, man.
Yep.
All right, Sean, take care, bud.
Okay. Thank you, brother.